Welcome to our Meet the Speakers for Illuminate and Elevate 2026, which I'm co-hosting again this year with the amazing Rebecca Steele-Scott, an Australian who's known for organising a number of events. So we organised last year's the 2025 Illuminate and Elevate, and we're doing another one this year. So I have two guests today to speak to. Steve Falconer of Spacebusters, as you can see, and Steve Young, or to give him his full title, Dr. Stephen A. Young. So welcome to you both. Thank you for joining me. And really if you'd give a kind of brief background of where you are, how you got to where you are. I mean, I know, we've all gone on long journeys, but if you can give a kind of brief overview of how you got to be where you are. So if we start with Steve Young, if you'd give a brief background, because, I mean, I know there's a
All right.
big story, but if you can, give us a brief overview, please.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having us on, Don. And yeah, looking forward to this event. I've obviously done a number of events with you now over the last couple of years. I'm not sure exactly how many, but we've crossed paths a bunch of times. And yeah, I absolutely love doing these events. So yeah, my background is in physics, particularly theoretical physics. So I did a PhD in theoretical physics about 20 odd years ago. And after university, I left to not really be able to get a job with my skills, with my hard-earned physics skills. And so I ended up kind of working in music, which has always been like a hobby I'd done, all throughout school as a hobby, DJing and so on. And so music became kind of my full-time gig, really. But in the background, I was, still researching science and researching conspiracies and all this kind of thing. And then when COVID came around in 2020, I decided to start writing a book. And this book was A Fool's Wisdom. And it went out about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. And yeah, it's been on a bit of a journey since then. My life's kind of changed. I'm now kind of an author and make videos and go around and do speaking events and so on. So I've kind of switched modes from being a musician and DJ to being a speaker on matters of science and alchemy and this kind of thing. So um, that's a short version, anyway, of my background.
Okay, so Steve Falconer, if you'll share your background, and then we can get more into what you're planning to talk about and
Yeah,
where
thanks,
you are.
Don.
So yeah, you're
It's going to
welcome.
be great. Yeah, like Stevie, I've been with a lot of events with you guys, and I was supposed to be at this one last year, and I couldn't make it because I am still a full-time working musician. So I can't give up all those gigs and money. I make a this is a lot of my working season. I have the opposite of him. I actually have more of a practical background. I came up years in the corrupt medical insurance industry in the United States. So I was an insider in the absolutely filthy, corrupt medical insurance industry. And I got to see kind of from the ground level up what a racket everything was. And it was crushing my soul. So I left and just became a full time musician. I was offered an opportunity to co-manage and run a private insurance industry. I would have been a multimillionaire by now, and like I would have been sitting on Fat Street and all that. And I said, no, I'm quitting and going to Europe to play with a band, which was the best decision I ever made in my life. Throughout that journey, I started wanting to find out what's going on after things like 9/11 and certain events. I started, like many artists, I started deep research, like what is going on in the world? Something's wrong. Um, and after I became a writer for a publication called True Serum News, which got banned after certain events like S Hook, a certain school shooting that never happened, and certain things like that. And later, my best friend Ross started Spacebusters, so I decided like, oh, this video thing looks fun. Like he was making movies, and I thought I'm going to try this. And I became a filmmaker. And then, as you know me from, COVID-19 hit, and because I had already known that viruses weren't real for a long, long time, I started making little movies for our little 3,000 subs, saying, "Hey, don't worry about this; it's nothing." And those movies started exploding and getting millions of views. And I started getting invited, like by people like Rebecca Scott, actually, started inviting me to come to big events and start speaking about all this, because I'm a public entertainer, but I'm not a public speaker. And then so my topics vary. I'll be talking about mineral cell salts, which is one thing I'm known for, and we can talk about that in a little bit. And to my surprise, apparently last year I had made some videos with Lisa Sturbeck at the time, and loads of homeopaths got in touch and said, "How come we've never heard of this? Like, we're supposed to be the good guys." And it's, as I jokingly say, it's weird. I'm the guy out there spreading it. As we'll get into later, I take them because me, I'm rock and roll. I have drinking, I smoke, I do a lot of stuff that I'd probably be dead by now if I don't do something to counterbalance all the bad boy stuff I do. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. And now I've become a speaker. People call me a political commentator. Not that I am, and I'm a filmmaker, pretty much like Steve on my, when I'm not entertaining, that's kind of what I'm doing. And I'm the MC of this event because I'm funny.
You are indeed.
At
Yes,
least
yes.
I
I
think I
apologize.
think I am.
Yes, yes, yes. Funny and good fun to be with, as you say. We've already, this will be the second of three events that the three of us will be together in September, and there'll be another one later in September. So, yes, of course. I apologize. I should have mentioned. Yes, you'll be the MC as well, which is which we're looking forward to. So, Steve Young, if you'd like to jump in and say a little bit more, because I mean, you're still in the world of music and DJing as well. You still produce music, although your other side, with what you do with your writing and speaking is more to expose the problems within the world of I'm going to put air quotes here, science, or scientism. Um, and it's good because of your background. You understand it from within the very technical side of it, so you do know how to explain things from the inside, like with Steve Falconer's, knowing from the inside of the medical system, knowing how it was wrong, from the inside of how science. So if you'd like to share a little bit more about that, and also just a taste of what you're going to be sharing with us in September.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, with science and music for me have been this kind of like two sort of intertwined threads through life. I was doing obviously science mainly at school, that was my thing. But then when I was at home and at weekends and stuff like that, I was learning musical instruments, learning to produce music on computers and stuff. And yeah, I guess that those were kind of like my primary sort of habits. I was curious and creative. And so, but as life went on, right, didn't really seem to be much opportunity for me in terms of the kind of science I'd been looking at. Whereas music, obviously, there's always a demand for music. People are going out every weekend, dancing to music and everything. It just seemed like that was where to pour my energy. And so I poured really everything I had into that for quite a while. And nowadays, I'm not really making music so much. Everything kind of changed during COVID. My whole relationship to the industry just changed. I saw a whole side of the industry that was obviously quite ugly. As I've said, I think it's largely used for the purposes of state control. It's like a tool of the state. So I kind of I didn't fall out of love with music itself, but um, the idea of trying to succeed in that industry was just no longer something I felt like was, reasonable or achievable. Like given everything I'd seen during COVID. But at the same time, I was being called back to my scientific roots because I'd kind of just abandoned that. It wasn't really part of my public life. I would just like privately research science and not really talk about it in my public life. But again, with the COVID stuff, it was like, no, you need to, there was just this voice from God or whatever. My conscience, my higher self was just like, no, you need to step up now and actually, start talking about science and the problems with it. And yeah, I guess I can't even really have expected where that would lead me, because, now every time I look at the science I was taught and indoctrinated with, it blows my mind the amount of like problems with it, the conditioning, the control, the lies. It's unbelievable, actually. And yeah, all you have to do is look at it. Like once you've kind of woken up, all you have to do is look back over the stuff you were taught, and you just like keep finding more and more problems with it. Um, so anyway, yeah, so I'm kind of in that position now, but a big part of that journey was discovering alchemy. So that was probably around 2012, 2013. I first started researching alchemy, and I found it very, very exciting as a scientist, but also as an artist. I felt it really tied together everything for me. And as I as I started reviewing science, I could see that there was these two completely different views of science, the kind of ancient view held by alchemists, and then this modern view, modern science, 20th century science or scientism. And I started to compare and contrast them and see how they differ. And they're kind of like diametrically opposed to each other in a way. So I find myself kind of in between these two scientific worldviews, like the materialistic, like non-spiritual modern science, and then this ancient science, which is rooted in spirituality and which was practiced in many cultures across the world. I find myself as kind of like a bridge between these two now. So on the one hand, there's kind of two parts to my work. One part is like breaking down and dismantling modern science and showing why it's insufficient or why it's wrong. But then on the other side, I'm showing that the ancient science of alchemy is actually really useful and practical, gives us an understanding of what's real and true and provable. And yeah, and when we base our lives on that, it's just much more secure and much more enlightening. So my work always falls somewhere in that kind of spectrum. But yeah, so for Illuminate and Elevate this year, I really want to like dive into like the practical application of alchemy in our daily life. So I'm going to go through a lot of ways that we can use this knowledge to, improve the quality of our life.
That'll be wonderful. Yeah, I think that's so important. That's, when we look at the theoretical stuff and you go, well, okay, we have these understandings, but it's what can we then do with it? Like you say, the kind of spiritual ideas, or kind of learning who we are, the nature of reality, consciousness, and go, okay, and how does that affect my daily life? Because that's the thing. You go, well, it's all very interesting, but what about my life? Well, I think this is some of the things that are really important to bring forward to help people, and to do that. That'll be part of my presentation as well, but that's not what this conversation's about. But again, because for that very reason that we're looking at what isn't true, we're getting rid of what's untrue, and we have to look at what's left and how that sort of how that helps us in life, or what we can do with it in a practical sense, without giving up that kind of, as you say, spiritual side. And it's that kind of dance between the two, and finding that harmony. So yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Steve Falconer, would you like to join in and share your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly. Sorry, the sun's doing the double split experiment behind me. Oh my God, it's photons. Yeah, that's actually what I really like about this conference coming up. Illuminate, Elevate. Ironically, I'm the only one talking about partially physical or materialistic science with the cell salts, but they are not. I'm going to get into the mind, body, mirror, and how they are one part of a spiritual thing. But yeah, we're at a lot of these conferences, there's a lot of speakers talking spirituality, a lot of woo-woo stuff. And you're like, yeah, like what do I do with this? It's all great to know stuff, but like you say, what can you do with your everyday life? And all the speakers at this coming conference are talking about spirituality and other things that are, how do you apply it? It's all about application, which I think is important. If you're going to come to a place, and you're going to pay money and sit through some lectures, you shouldn't walk away going, well, I can't use this. Otherwise, you might as well go to university like Steve for 7 years and get a quantum physics degree. You know what I mean? Like it's no, we have to be the same. And also, what I like about these conferences or love is because the kind of people who come there are like-minded and are seeking for this kind of thing. I think a lot of us feel a little beaten and downtrodden talking to everyday norm, not that we're some better than them or anything, but people who just don't know about this information, or you've got them in your comment sections. If you're a social media content creator, bringing you down, bringing you down. And sometimes it's just so soul healing and uplifting to just be around 50 or 100 people who just get what you're talking about. You don't have to walk on eggshells. You don't have to explain yourself. They're on the same page. They're resonating in the same frequency. They're on your wavelength. They're in your tribe. Or as Beth Martins told me, they're in your echo chamber, which is a good thing. And I think a lot of people like to come to these events, even just for that, without the information they're learning. They're like, I'll pay this cash just to hang out with 100 cool people and not have to worry about what they think about me or what I say or whatever. So I think that's also why I love these conferences. But this one coming up is especially good because I can't see any fluff or woo woo that's not usable. It's everyone's topic is totally applicable. The minute after the conference is over, you can go home and apply it. I've done myself with Steve. Steve, I was like what I call a ghetto alchemist before I met him and talked to him a few years ago. And I read his book and I'm getting into alchemy deeper. And I see it everywhere. I use it now everywhere. And I think that's the whole point is like, yeah, we need to all start giving solutions like you do as well. It's all fine to be spiritual and woo woo, but it's got to be woo do woo. You got to be able to do something with your woo 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 do or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, so that's where I'm coming from. I'm talking about cell salts, but I'm going to show the mind body mirror system and that there is what you would call a non physicality side to what the physicality healing properties of these things do. And so, yeah, probably rambling, but that's my.
No, I mean that's again really useful, and it's yeah, because the tissue salts are not the same as homeopathy, but there is a big overlap. They work on similar levels. It's the energetic level, which again, and as with alchemy, it's recognizing the connection with nature. That's the natural elements, as you talk about, Steve. Dr. Steve. Yeah, that's alchemy, or rather, alchemy is a connection back to nature, which the science stuff is a disconnection from nature.
That's
Yeah.
another thing,
That's
Don, too. Yes, because when you talk about cell salts, for instance, because it's labeled as biochemistry, right? People go, well, that's materialism, that's molecules and atoms, and you're like, no, 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 that's not how these work. These are salts. This is alchemy. It's alchemy. It's toroidal fields. It's does it spin right hand clockwise or counterclockwise? Are you creating life energy or are you creating destructive energy? This is not materialism. They just happen to be salt, which we call material. But as Steve will be a great precursor to me, or I don't know who comes on first, but this is alchemy. Basically, everything everyone's talking about is alchemy in the end. Everything, spirituality is alchemy.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the education system, which I guess we expect is there to like receive an education of the tried and true uh, principles of the cosmos and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it just like looking back on it now, it seems like it was just made to create obedient soldiers, compliant workers, and like docile consumers, right? It was made for the man, right? It's like made to condition people to be in service of the man, of the corporations, the industry. But it wasn't made for the times that we're in now with the internet and everyone kind of becoming empowered and talking to each other and sharing truth with each other. The whole truther movement, the conspiracy theory movement, all kind of born out of the internet is just kind of like shown the school system for what it is. It was basically designed to create slaves, and one of the ways that they do that is to condition us with a false origin story of who we are and where we've come from. And, that could be something as fundamental as, you evolved from monkeys, or, you came out of the slime, the primordial goo, or, you're on a spinning ball and, you're made from atoms that are, it's like basically going back to your origins. You have no soul, no spirit. You're just a unit of flesh, like a human resource kind of thing. Like all this stuff is programmed in through the education system. And it's actually worldwide as well. UNESCO, right? It's UNESCO basically made a uniform like worldview all through all the world's education system. So everyone gets taught all the same stuff in school that diminishes you to just, a bunch of atoms and some like muck that's just like come up from from the ground or whatever. And so yeah, it's I don't know, it's mind blowing. But when you look at the ancient science and you incorporate the spirituality and everything, it's like, no, you're created in the image of God. You have a soul, you have an essential dignity. You're a creative being, all this kind of stuff. That all that's just kind of like knocked out of you by the education system. And I think that's just why it's just not fit for the times that we're living in anymore, which is why the whole thing is just in crisis. We have this truth movement online, but we still have this education medical system that carries on as if none of the truth even exists. And it's like, yeah, it's a strange time the way things are like split at the moment. But
It's funny
yeah,
because UNESCO was run by Julian Huxley, whose brother was Aldous Huxley, who told you wrote the Brave New World. So,
yeah,
like the king of you're all going to be a material soma taking robot slave, genetically programmed and built in incubators. It's his brother who started what you're talking about, and that's a totally great point. Steve, is I remember like coming out of school, I hated school so bad that I'm like, I'm done. Right after college, I'm like, that's the end of that shit. That's all I'm going to do. And I know a lot of people are the same. They're like, I don't need to research because I did my 20 years, Bob Dylan, 20 years of school, and then they put you on the day shift, and then they're like, the rest of my education comes from the morning paper, the TV news, the 6 o'clock news, and then they're reading nonfiction books or fiction books, sorry, but real shitty dime store novels. Very few people ever wanted to read. Now my son's reading again, and he's 20. Like he just picked up 1984 off me and Brave New World and the wall. Like he's checking all this out. They're reading again. They're getting into old music, and that's what I think Steve's saying. The internet, this truth movement, all you can really call it is people who said, I realize my 20 years of schooling taught me jack shit and it's all wrong, and I'm spending my spare time not watching Netflix, but digging into what's going on. They may not know where to dig because there's so many rabbit holes put there to keep you digging forever that you'll never get to the bottom of. But it's just a lot of people saying, I understand that this system has indoctrinated me against what I don't know, maybe yet a lot of people. But that's the point of these conferences too, is it's no different than coming to like a really good school, Ivy League level school lecture, but without their bullshit people, like the professors we should have had in school, right? But we don't, like, not that we're professors, but it's basically like going to what a college lecture should have been.
yeah.
Imagine if all of our college lectures for 4 years or 8 for a doctor or whatever were the level of the stuff you get at these truther talks. Imagine that. You came out of school like that, they could not control you at all.
Hmm.
Everybody be a self-sovereign killer. They would, you know what I mean? Like this world would be completely different.
Well, that's why it's important to share this now so that as many people are learning it and then passing it on to their children, and not necessarily small children, but to young people who are not yet, who don't yet have families, so that they can raise their children with this information, so that they don't have to go through it to then unlearn it. So get that information, as they come through. And really, it's so many points, but the main point is, being in person with other people, real in-person events, speaking face to face with people isn't, very different experience than, typing stuff out online. Because again, you don't know who that uh, name is. I mean, we may know some, we like with each other, we'll know who we're communicating with. But some of these random comments on social media, we don't know who they are,
And they don't really know who you are either. Like us three have met each other quite a lot in person in real life. We know that we're different in real life than our online perceived personas too, as well. So it's good for people to come to events and say, well, if I'm going to listen to this speaker, they get the chance to come out and have, dinner and drinks with us, and they get a question and answer. We get to talk, we get to hang out before and in between and during. So you're like, who is this person? I mean, it's not, you kind of get to vet it and say, should I be listening to them? Which I think is great. You don't get to do that when you watch a movie, or even your college professor. Like for me, the bell rang and that's it. We all got out of there, and so did he or she. They just left. They're like out golfing or on lunch break. Stevie would know more than me, but so I think these are really great too. And you get to sit and talk about it. I never talked to any of my classmates in school, high school, or college about any lecture. We never sat around like, what do you think about that? We just effed off to our next class. That's how it was when I came up. So
Yeah, no, again, I mean, yeah, with the in-person events, absolutely love it, because I mean, in a lot of ways, like, even though like the ideas that we're talking about a lot of the time are very big ideas, they have very universal impact and implications, but we are just shouting into a tiny dark corner of the internet. And I was certainly pretty humbled when I went to America and, went to like New York and San Francisco and Austin, Texas and stuff, and the sheer scale of these cities and places, the amount of people just going about their lives, and my videos getting 5,000 views and stuff like that. It puts it, I live in a village with like 3,000 people. So if I get 5,000 views on a video, I'm like, well, that's like a whole village of people. I mean, that's great. But then you go to New York and London and, all of these places, San Francisco, and you see just how many people there are. And realize just how small of an influence actually, how small of a reach we have. And that's not to be discouraging, but just, you know, again, another reason why it's important to get together in person, because there aren't that many of us like looking at this stuff, and yeah, the more we get together, the more we coagulate, maybe the brighter the signal becomes.
and the stronger the energy as it goes out. So yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's kind of a good overview, for people who don't know you, to get to know you both, and a little taster of what you're going to be talking about. So, I mean,
Mhm.
have you got any kind of particular comments you'd like
well, I would
to
just tell
share?
people, yeah. So the way these things work, I think there might be still early bird tickets left on sale. I'm not sure. So it's Illuminate
Uh,
Elevated. It's on the 11th of September. We know that date has a negative connotation in people's heads. That's in you. That's in your head. So you have to transcend that. Um, so we understand that. But the way these events work is we really appreciate pre-ticket sales earlier, because our event coordinators like Dawn and Rebecca and everyone, we have to finance the speakers' flights, hotels, da 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 da. So the reason that discount tickets are offered is so you'll take advantage of that and help put some capital into the event, so that we're not scrambling around trying to make ends meet and stuff. So there are discounted tickets available, and there's going to be dinner available with the speakers and stuff, and they're just magnificent. Us three were just in Dundee at a magnificent conference. It was really great. It was the first one. Everybody had a wonderful time. We have a new Telegram group where everyone who was there is now friends. We remember each other. It's great. So you're not really coming to just hear some six people speak for the day about amazing stuff. You're really networking with, like Steve said, there's not a lot of us out there. So these things that like change your life without you knowing it. because we need networks in the future as things start to go the way they're going, and you don't agree with your family, you're fighting with them at Thanksgiving or whatever over Donald Trump or whatever. Like, you need a tribe, man. You're going to need people to stick up for you in what's coming. You need it, and these are where you find those people. So I would just say, for those going, well, 130 quid, it's like that. This is a priceless what you get out of that. That is peanuts to pay. I spend more than that out drinking on a weekend with a like, so it's really like peanuts to pay, and it helps us if you pre-buy now instead of waiting till the last minute.
Thank you. Steve, you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't. I don't think I do actually.
Yeah, I mean the
Yeah,
in-person, there is something very special. I've been to a number of in-person events, and there is something very, very special, very warming, very, I call it nourishing, being with people who are on the same wavelength. And again, those of us as speakers, we're not saying, oh, we know it all, and we're not like the lecturers, oh, kind of, we're here and we're telling you stuff. We're sharing where we are, and we're still open to learning and developing whatever we're doing. It's so we do interact with people, and we're sharing what we know, and being with like-minded people is so important, because as you said, Steve, we're spread out around the world, and I think there's a reason for that. At the same time, it's not always easy, so these in-person events, and
I
I know
think they're great too, the small ones, Don, like,
mm,
because we all speak at like some pretty big events and some like smaller ones. I like these because we've all spoken at some bigger events where the speakers are like VIP, and then they have to run off into a VIP room because 700 people are running up trying to talk to them nonstop, and it gets like a little bit taxing. But these small events, you get to come up and actually pick these speakers' brains. Like, I would have loved to have this 20 years ago when I was researching, and go talk to someone like Dr. John Coleman, Jordan Maxwell, even David Icke back at the time, G. Edward Griffin. The people I was into, I would have been like, oh my God, I would love just 10 minutes to ask this guy some questions. And that's what I think these events are great, is you got a lot more than that. And we all hang out. We don't run off to like VIP or act like put on a cape and get on the airplane like some of these events, some of the people at these events. So I think these are really the best ones to come to, because there's a lot of people who've been watching any of the speakers' channels or watching us for years, and are like, God, some people just want to say hi and take a picture, but others are like, God, I've wished I could ask you this for 6 years now. And you can, like, you get a personal answer, you know what I mean? So I think that's like invaluable.
yeah. I remember someone saying that the online experience is like junk food. It's like you think that you're getting filled up by the more you consume, but you're still hungry at the end of it. But the in-person experience is actually like proper, like nourishing, when you're there, like in other people's energy fields, and just talking to people like man to man, or woman to woman, or whatever it is. It's yeah, it's just all much more grounding and down to earth, and yeah, can't wait for it.
Yeah, exciting. So thank you very much, both of you, for your time and for sharing all of your enthusiasm and your background for people. So yeah, thank you. And
And looking forward to seeing you guys there again. I'm bringing my
yes,
son this time. My son's like into ultra consciousness explosion. He's getting into all his Alan Watts and the Book of Wisdom 1 and 2, and he's gone, like, he's getting into psychonautics and all that stuff. So he saw the trailer I made for it, and he's like, God, I'd love to come to that. And I said, well, why don't you? And he said, can I? And I said, yeah. So he's coming along. He's gonna love it. Yeah.
That's great.
that'll be good to have, younger, adults. I mean, it's not sort of adults only. I would have thought, kind of late teens onwards would be fine with the material we're sharing. So
I'm
yeah.
probably the most immature person there. I don't know about age, but I'm probably the youngest.
Hmm. Okay. Well, thank you both very much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, really looking forward to seeing you in September. So we'll leave it there. Thank you both.
All right. Bye bye.